The plasma bolt vaporized Corporal Hayes 3 feet to my left. 1 second he was checking his rifle's power pack, the next he was superheated atoms scattering across firebase Kepler's permacrete walls. No scream, no time for last words, just gone. "Incoming!" I bellowed, diving behind a blast barrier as the sky lit up with alien fire. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, United States Space Force, 3rd Expeditionary Regiment. 3 months ago, we thought we'd discovered paradise on Kepler 442b, breathable atmosphere, liquid water, potential mining operations worth trillions. Command sent us to establish humanity's first extraterrestrial military installation. Turns out someone already owned the property. The Vek'tar didn't appreciate squatters. Their ships descended like falling mountains, obsidian pyramids that defied physics, hovering without visible propulsion. When they opened fire, our missile defense systems lasted exactly 47 seconds. The aliens' energy shields made our railguns about as effective as throwing rocks at a tank. We lost half the firebase in the first hour. "Chen, west wall's collapsing!" Lieutenant Marcus Jackson slid into cover beside me, his dark skin covered in dust and someone else's blood. "They're concentrating fire on the reactor. We lose power. We lose life support." I checked my tactical display. 43 Marines left from our original company of 200. No relief force. The Vek'tar had blockaded the system. No extraction. No surrender protocol because we'd never imagined meeting aliens, let alone needing to surrender to them. Command's last transmission before we lost the comm satellite. Hold position. Study the enemy. Give Earth time to prepare. Translation. You're all going to die. Make it count. Get everyone to the command bunker, I ordered. Emergency Protocol Zulu. Jackson's eyes widened. Captain, that's our only play. Move. The Vek'tar didn't make mistakes. That was the problem. Over 3 days of continuous assault, I'd watched their tactics with a strategist's eye. They were efficient, precise. They'd calculate the exact amount of firepower needed to destroy a target, apply it, then move to the next objective. No overkill, no emotion, no improvisation. They fought like machines running optimization algorithms. Humans? We fight like cornered animals with doctorate degrees. In the command bunker, my remaining Marines looked like extras from a horror movie, exhausted, wounded, wearing armor held together with duct tape and desperation. But their eyes were sharp, alert, pissed off. "Listen up," I said, pulling up a holographic display of the firebase. "We can't win a conventional engagement. They've got better weapons, better shields, better everything, so we're not going to fight conventionally." Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, our chief engineer, stepped forward. "Captain, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. The Vek'tar ships maintain a consistent altitude of exactly 2,000 meters. Their plasma weapons have a recharge cycle of 3.7 seconds, and their shields—" She paused, pulling up scan data. "Their shields are omnidirectional, constant power draw across the entire surface." "Meaning?" Private First Class Devin Williams asked. "Meaning they're wasting energy," Rodriguez continued. "They're shielding against threats from all angles all the time. It's overkill, inefficient, but mathematically optimal for an enemy that might attack from any direction." I smiled. "They're fighting the perfect enemy, not us." Jackson caught on immediately. "They don't understand humans yet. They're running wargame simulations against what they think we should do." Exactly. They've probably conquered a dozen species using the same playbook. Overwhelming firepower, mathematical precision, wait for the enemy to surrender when resistance becomes statistically futile. I pointed at the holodisplay. They don't get that humans don't give a shit about statistics. Laughter rippled through the bunker. Dark, exhausted laughter, but genuine. "Here's what we're going to do," I said. "We're going to teach them why Earth's most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest claws." The thing about U.S. military training is that we don't just teach soldiers how to use their equipment. We teach them how to improvise when that equipment fails. because it always fails. Murphy's Law isn't a cautionary tale in the American military. It's a design principle. Rodriguez and her engineering team had 6 hours to turn our dying firebase into a death trap. She started with the reactor. The Vek'tar keep targeting it because they assume we need it for life support and weapons, she explained, elbow deep in a control panel. They're right, but they're also predictable. They won't destroy it completely. Not yet. They're trying to force surrender by making our situation gradually more hopeless. How's that help us? Williams asked. Because, Rodriguez pulled out a bundle of cables, we can make them think we're more desperate than we are. We'll route life support to backup batteries, dump all remaining reactor power into one system. I grinned. The railgun. The railgun, she confirmed. Our main defensive weapon had been useless against Vek'tar shields. The electromagnetic projectiles just splashed against their energy barriers. But Rodriguez had a theory. Their shields were calibrated for energy weapons and explosive projectiles. Railgun rounds were solid tungsten slugs, moving at Mach 23. What if we're not trying to get through the shield, she proposed. What if we're trying to drain it? Jackson pulled up combat footage. Their shields flare when hit. That's energy being dispersed. If we hit the same spot repeatedly... Eventually we overwhelm the localized shield generator, Rodriguez finished. It'll create a weak point, just for a fraction of a second. That's when we hit them with everything else, I said. There was just one problem. Our railgun's targeting computer was fried. The Vek'tar's opening barrage had knocked out most electronic systems. We'd been fighting with iron sights and gunnery solutions calculated by hand. Williams, our youngest Marine, spoke up. Captain, before I enlisted, I was studying aerospace engineering at MIT. I can calculate firing trajectories. Did it for a robotics competition. You're a college kid who joined the Space Force for college money, Jackson said skeptically. I joined because I wanted to see space, Williams corrected. The college money was just a bonus. And yeah, I'm a college kid who placed second in the International Robotics Competition for ballistic trajectory calculations. I can do this. I clapped him on the shoulder. Welcome to Fire Direction Control, Private. Don't screw up. The railgun roared. Williams had done something beautiful. Instead of targeting the lead ship's center mass, he'd calculated a firing pattern that would hit the same 3-meter section of their shield every 3.2 seconds, just inside their weapon recharge cycle. The Vek'tar couldn't return fire without interrupting their shield regeneration. They had to choose, shoot back or maintain defenses. Being logical, they maintained defenses. Being human, we'd anticipated that. Rodriguez, tell me you're ready, I said. Mining charges are set. This is either genius or suicide. Why not both? The firebase sat on top of what we'd initially cataloged as stable bedrock. 3 months of geological surveys said the ground could support our structures indefinitely. But those surveys also revealed something else. A massive underground water reservoir, pressurized by tectonic activity. Rodriguez had spent 6 hours placing our mining explosives in a very specific pattern around that reservoir. Fire in the hole, she announced. The ground bucked like a wild horse. For a moment, I thought we'd miscalculated and were about to collapse the entire firebase into a sinkhole. Then the geyser erupted. Superheated water and steam shot 3,000 meters into the sky, directly into the Vek'tar formation. Not enough to damage their shields, but their sensors went haywire. Suddenly they were flying blind through a column of debris, water vapor, and mineral particulates that played hell with their targeting systems. They did exactly what we'd predicted. They adjusted altitude to get above the geyser. Now they were at 3,500 meters, out of optimal firing range for their plasma weapons. Williams, I shouted. I see it! Adjusting trajectory! His fingers flew across a tablet jury-rigged to the railgun controls. Firing! The tungsten slug hit the lead ship's shield at the exact spot we'd been hammering. For a microsecond, literally 1/1,000,000th of a second, the shield failed. Our missile battery, armed with every explosive we had left, launched simultaneously. The Vek'tar ship didn't explode. It just stopped, hovering, dead in the sky. Then it fell. When 2,000 tons of alien spacecraft hit the ground, the shockwave knocked half of us flat. The remaining Vek'tar ships broke formation, not retreating, repositioning, adapting. They were learning. "Captain, they're spreading out," Jackson warned, "trying to surround us." "Let them." "Rodriguez, how long until the next geyser?" "Geological activity is cyclical. Next pressure spike in 90 seconds." 90 seconds. The Vek'tar would reposition, recalibrate, and turn us into atoms in less time than that. Williams looked up from his calculations, face pale. "Captain, I can't target multiple ships. The railgun's automated systems are offline. I'd need to manually calculate each trajectory and—" "I know," I said. "We're not targeting the ships." I pulled up a topographical map. Firebase Kepler sat in a valley with steep ridges on 3 sides. Perfect defensive position. Also a perfect trap. Those ridges are granite and basalt, dense, heavy stone. "Rodriguez, can our mining charges destabilize them?" Her eyes widened. "You want to cause a landslide?" "I want to cause 3 simultaneous landslides. The Vek'tar are repositioning to surround us. They're moving into the valleys. They're thinking in terms of optimal firing positions, not terrain hazards. Because most advanced species would never use something as primitive as a rock slide," Jackson said, grinning. "But we're not most species." Rodriguez was already running calculations. "We'd need to place charges at structural weak points. The explosions would have to be precisely timed to create cascading failures. And we'd need someone to physically go to each location because our wireless detonation systems are fried." "I'll do it," Williams said immediately. "Like hell," I countered. "We need you on the railgun. Jackson, take a fire team. You've got 80 seconds. "Roger that." He grabbed 3 Marines and sprinted toward the firebase's vehicle bay. The next 60 seconds were the longest of my life. I watched our tactical display as Jackson's team raced along the ridge in an all-terrain vehicle, stopping at predetermined points to plant charges. Meanwhile, the Vek'tar ships slowly encircled us, precisely calculating their perfect attack positions. They had no idea what we were doing. Why would they? Using geological features as weapons was Stone Age thinking. "Charges set," Jackson radioed. "Clear. Rodriguez, trigger the geyser. Everyone else brace for impact." The second eruption was more violent than the first. We'd used shaped charges to direct the pressure upward. Steam and rock fragments shot into the sky. The Vek'tar ships activated their shields to maximum, adjusting altitude again. "Now, Rodriguez!" The mining charges detonated in sequence, each explosion calculated to trigger the next. 3 ridges collapsed simultaneously, sending thousands of tons of rock cascading into the valleys. The Vek'tar ships, hovering in what they'd determined were optimal attack positions, suddenly found themselves in the path of 3 artificial avalanches. Their shields could stop energy weapons and projectiles, but shields obeyed physics. They created resistance against incoming objects. When several thousand tons of rock moving at terminal velocity hit those shields, the ships weren't damaged. They were just pushed, straight into the ground, or into each other. 2 more ships went down. A third, caught between 2 rock slides, was crushed when its shield generators overloaded trying to deflect rock from 2 directions simultaneously. That left 1. The last Vek'tar ship hovered at 6,000 meters, well outside our weapons range. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. We waited in our damaged firebase, waiting for orbital bombardment or a kamikaze run or something. Instead, we got a transmission. "Human Commander Chen." The voice was different, still mechanical, but with something else underneath. Confusion? Respect? "You have violated 17 principles of logical warfare. Your tactics were inefficient, wasteful, based on incomplete data and probabilistic outcomes rather than calculated certainty." "Yeah," I said. "We call that improvisation." Improvisation is suboptimal. It introduces unnecessary variables. Unnecessary to you, essential to us. See, your people fight like you've already won. You calculate the perfect strategy, execute it, and can't understand why it doesn't work. But humans? We're used to plans falling apart. We expect it. So we get creative. Silence. Then, you destroyed 4 ships with primitive kinetic weapons and geological manipulation. This should not have been possible. Our simulations did not account for such creativity. That's your problem, I said. You simulated warfare against a logical enemy. Humans aren't logical. We're stubborn, adaptable, and really, really good at killing things that underestimate us. It's kind of our specialty. Another pause. We will withdraw from this system. We will report that Kepler 442b is claimed by Earth, but we will return with updated tactical algorithms. We'll be waiting, I said. And here's a free tip. We'll have updated our tactics too. That's the thing about humans. We learn fast. Every time you come back, we'll have new tricks, new weapons, new ways to turn your advantages against you. This is inefficient, the Vek'tar commander said, but there was something almost like curiosity in its voice. Combat should reach optimal conclusions. Your species' refusal to accept mathematical inevitability is unprecedented. Get used to it, I said. Because when humanity reaches the stars, we're bringing our chaos with us. The Vek'tar ship rose slowly, turned, and accelerated into orbit. 3 weeks later, the relief force arrived from Earth. They found 43 Marines alive, holding a firebase that every tactical simulation said should have fallen in hours. The wreckage of 4 Vek'tar ships, each technologically superior to anything humanity had ever built, lay scattered across the valley like discarded toys. General Morrison, commander of the 5th Fleet, stood in what used to be our command center and just stared. "Captain Chen," he finally said, "your after-action report is the most insane document I've ever read. Rock slides, geysers, a private first class doing ballistic calculations by hand." "Sir, we didn't have many options." "No, I suppose you didn't." He shook his head. "You've given Earth something more valuable than a military victory. You've given us intelligence. The Vek'tar aren't invincible. They're just predictable. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's being unpredictable." He handed me a data chip. "Your full report's been distributed to every military installation in the Sol system. They're calling it the Kepler Doctrine. Fight asymmetrically, use terrain, improvise, never do what the enemy expects." It's not exactly a new strategy, sir. Guerrilla warfare, insurgency tactics. Against other humans, sure. But against an alien species with superior technology? Morrison smiled. "That's new, and it's terrifying. Because if we can beat them with railguns and rock slides, imagine what we'll do when we reverse engineer their tech." 6 months after the Battle of Firebase Kepler, I was promoted to Major and assigned to the newly formed Asymmetric Warfare Division. My job, teach other soldiers how to think like cornered animals with advanced degrees. We studied the Vek'tar ship wreckage, learned from it, but never copied it directly. Their technology was optimized for predictable combat scenarios. Ours evolved to be deliberately chaotic, modular, field-adaptable. We developed weapons that could be repurposed mid-battle, tactics that intentionally left multiple options open, training that emphasized creativity over doctrine. The Vek'tar came back, just as they'd promised, with updated tactical algorithms, new weapons, better shields. We hit them with drone swarms that moved like birds, unpredictable organic patterns that their targeting systems couldn't track. We used decoys that exploited their tendency toward mathematical optimization. We won battles by making it too inefficient for them to continue fighting. Other species noticed. The Galactic Coalition, a loose alliance of races that had survived Vek'tar expansion by retreating and fortifying, reached out to Earth. They wanted to know our secret. I represented humanity at the first interspecies military symposium. "There's no secret," I told the assembled alien delegates. "Humans are good at war because we've been doing it to each other for millennia. We've fought in deserts, jungles, cities, oceans. We've used swords, rifles, drones, and nuclear weapons. We've fought conventional wars and guerrilla campaigns and everything in between." A delegate from the core shy, six-armed insectoid beings, clicked its mandibles skeptically. But the Vek'tar possess superior technology. How do you overcome this? We don't, I said simply. We work around it, under it, through it. We cheat. We improvise. We turn their strengths into weaknesses. That's the human way. This is dishonorable, another delegate protested. Maybe, I acknowledged, but it works. And when you're fighting for survival, honor is a luxury, victory is a necessity. 5 years after first contact, the war with the Vek'tar reached a stalemate. They couldn't defeat us because we refused to fight the way they expected. We couldn't defeat them because, frankly, they still had better ships and weapons. But stalemate was victory. The Vek'tar had conquered 17 species. They'd never been stopped before. Human stubbornness, our refusal to accept mathematical inevitability, had broken their expansion. Other species joined us. The coalition grew. We shared tactics, technology, and most importantly, philosophy. Never become predictable. Rodriguez made admiral, overseeing the new Rapid Fabrication Corps, engineers trained to build weapons from whatever was available. Williams became the youngest professor at the Space Force Academy, teaching advanced ballistics and creative problem-solving under fire. Jackson took over the Asymmetric Warfare Division after I was promoted to general. As for me, I spent my days training the next generation of soldiers, teaching them that the best weapon isn't the biggest or most advanced. It's the one your enemy doesn't expect. Firebase Kepler became a monument, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our firepower. It's our ability to look at impossible situations and say, okay, but what if we try this crazy idea instead? The Vek'tar eventually learned to adapt to our tactics. They became less predictable, more creative in their own way, which meant we had to become even more creative. And that's the real lesson of humanity's first interstellar war. We don't win by being stronger. We win by being too stubborn to quit and too clever to fight fair. The galaxy thought humans were just another primitive species, barely worthy of notice. They learned different. We learned something too. Out here among the stars, Earth's children weren't just explorers or colonists. We were humanity, fuck yeah. And we were just getting started.